Welcome to Who Wrote That Up for You, a daily podcast that shines a light on the American justice system and its role in empowering the powerful to take from you. The justice system is the only branch of your government where an individual, rather than the collective, can make the system act for you. It puts power in the individual's hands, but it's broken and being used against you at a time when you need it most.
And we are live on Who Wrote That Up for You. Today is Wednesday, October 19th, 2022. I am Sonia Ebron, co-founder at Courtroom 5.
I am Deborah Sloan, the other co-founder at Courtroom 5.
We've got a marvelous show lined up for you today. In a few moments, we will speak with Kitt, who will share her experience just trying to get her name changed after many years of wanting to do that. A little further in the show, we'll speak with Mary Oram. Mary's a property management expert who finds herself in the middle of disputes between landlords or owners and tenants all the time, and will share some of her experience with us as well. Before we get there, though, Deborah, what's on your mind today?
I'd like to talk about the issue of, well, first of all, we discussed previously, did a series on things that make pro se litigants lose. So I'm doing a new series on peculiar law things. And one of the peculiar things about the law that's not so much in other fields is just the massive amount of rules about assisting someone with their cases. It doesn't matter whether it's criminal or civil. You can go to jail if you help somebody with a case. Problem with that is that lawyers take advantage of that all the time, and they use things within the law, use the civil procedure within the law to basically make pro se litigants lose. One of the examples is request for admissions. That's a real easy one. That's a simple one, where a lawyer will send out a request for admissions, knowing that a pro se litigant is not really going to be not going to really know what that is or the impact of not responding. So when the pro se litigant doesn't respond, basically the lawyer wins because the pro se litigant has already admitted that everything that was said is admitted is true. And so I know, Sonia, you talk a lot about hate the game, not the player. But in this case, it just strikes me as unfair in such an important on such an important issue as justice.
It's interesting. I've actually experienced that failure myself, having an experienced litigator send me a request for admissions. And I'm like, I'm not admitting to any of that and just ignoring it. And of course, by doing so, admitted all of it. Yeah, those sorts of rules, really dissuade you from the belief that these institutions are set up to serve average people. So I'm glad to hear you bringing that up. Fantastic. Well, Who Wrote That Up for You is sponsored by Courtroom 5. At Courtroom 5, we believe the courts belong to the people, in particular to the people who use them. And we, the people, are coming to claim our courts. And so if you are in court without a lawyer, or if you need to sue someone and can't find a lawyer to represent you, get yourself over to courtroom5.com. Try a limited version of our services for free, and we hope to provide some relief for you there. At this time, it's my pleasure to welcome onto the show Kitt. Um, Thank you for joining us on Who Wrote That Up for You, Kitt. I know that you, from previous conversation, had wanted to change your name for some time and waited until you had the sort of leisure and the time to be able to handle that process. Tell us what you experienced.
Well, so I actually disliked my first name for a long time. I disliked it enough. I don't want to tell you what it was. But that sort of, it worked, and I worked under that name. I went to school under that name. But once I retired and then moved, I thought, I'm starting in a new place. It's a great time to change my name. So, but unfortunately, it was also during COVID, so that complicated things a little bit. I couldn't just walk into the courthouse. But Alameda County in California is where I am, and the court had a pretty good thing of having all the paperwork and stuff available online. So I downloaded the form using my I don't remember now how I did get it printed. Somehow I managed to get it printed, and filled it out to send it in. And I found that before I could send in the form, or when I send in the form, I also had to have lined up advertising the change of name in a paper of record, right? I guess the idea is that you can't just, change your name and say, no, that wasn't me about something. So you have to put it in an ad in. And it said that the ad, I had to get myself started and have a court date and then have the ad run for at least 3 consecutive weeks or something like that. So I tried to do that and I put the stuff in and I got the paperwork back from the court and they said, okay, great. Your court date is 2 weeks from now. And it's like, wait, I can't have the ad run. So I had to contact them again and do it over and get that changed. And, of course it costs something. It costs several $100s, to get the ad run and $100 and some to file with the court. But so I did those things. And finally everything happened. The ad ran, the ad was correct. The court date happened, but it was still COVID. So instead of my going in, the judge just called me on the phone and asked me if all this information was correct and why I wanted to change my name. And so I explained all that. And so that all seemed great. And he said, okay, you'll get the paperwork in the mail. And it came, but so I had started the process in February, but it was April when the paperwork arrived, and the paperwork said on it that the name change had happened in July, which it wasn't even July yet, and it didn't match the other dates on the papers. But luckily, because the lawyer had called me on my cell phone, I had the lawyer's number. Excuse me, the judge had called me on my cell phone. So I had the judge's number. So I just called the judge and said, oh, what do I do? And he said, oh, I'll take care of it, which he absolutely did. He was really nice. I don't know what I would have had to go through otherwise. And I got the correct form a couple of a week or so later. And then I thought, great, I'm done. So, but this is how things are with government and so forth. So I contacted my bank and I said, let me send you my court order form and change the name on my accounts. And they said, oh, but you have to show us that you've changed your Social Security records. So I called Social Security, which, by the way, is the same number you call for Medicare stuff. And they said, well, the office is closed. We can't do this over the phone. You have to submit things to us in person, but you can't even start with us until you have a new driver's license so that we have a photo ID with your new name on it. So, so by that time, DMV actually did have some restricted office hours. So I waited at DMV for, I don't know how long I had to wait, and got that and waited for them to send me the new driver's license in the mail. So then I contacted Social Security again, and although DMV had been open, the Social Security office still wasn't open because of COVID. But they said, but you can make an appointment to drop off your paperwork, and you have to give us your driver's license. I'm like, well, then what do I do I don't have a driver's license in the meantime? And they said, well, we'll send it right back to you. So luckily, I did that. I gave them the driver's license. They did get the driver's license back to me within a week, like special delivery. And luckily I live in an address and have a secure mailbox, so I could get all my documents back. And so then Social Security got changed. And then I was able to go to the bank and get that changed. But, the story wasn't quite over because my next Medicare bill came and it had the old name on it. I'm like, what? So I had to call Social Security again to get them to change it for Medicare.
Oh my, that's a mess. That is such a mess. You had to deal with the courts and then DMV and Social Security and all of those government agencies that you would think would make things easier. What's striking to me, Kitt, about the story here is that all of those things, it seems to me, were made easier because of COVID. That had we not, yeah, had we
True.
not had
I
the
think that's true.
pandemic, you
That's
would have had a much more
true.
difficult time getting any of
Yeah.
that done.
And of course, it was made, possible because being retired, I had the time to
Right.
read all this paperwork and fill out each one of these forms, which were kind of duplicative of each other.
Oh my.
So,
Yeah, yeah. I'm really glad you got it done.
thank you.
Name changes are important for a whole variety of reasons. Everybody has an individual story there, but it's meaningful to everybody who wants to go through that. So glad that it was, although difficult, done. It's in the past now. So
Yeah.
fantastic. Kit, thank you so much for
Thank
sharing your
you.
story
Thank
on who
you.
wrote that up for you.
Thank you for the work you do. It makes a difference.
I appreciate that very much. Thanks again. Fantastic. That's a success story, although difficult. Great to hear that she got that done.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, who won yesterday's quiz, if anyone?
We actually had a winner today. Here's the quiz. This was a true or false question. One goal of a motion in limine is to get harmful evidence or testimony ruled inadmissible. That is true. The other goal is to get certain evidence or testimony admitted. So that's primarily the definition of a motion in limine. That's a true statement. The winner is Omar A.
Congratulations to Omar there. I thought that was another of your trick questions. So really glad. It's interesting. We have a voice message capability on the podcast. Want to just invite our viewers and listeners to check that out. You could actually submit your answers to these quizzes by voice message as well. Be sure to leave your name if you do that. But wherever you find the podcast, you'll be able to do that. I would love on questions like this, though, to hear how people pronounce lemonade.
Oh yeah, we had problems with that.
I'm just learning
Lemon.
in Lamont, exactly. Congratulations to Omar there. What do you
All
have
right.
teed up for us tomorrow?
Okay, today's quiz. Which of the following is the least likely to be asserted as a defense in a contract case? Is it a mistake, unclean hands, accord and satisfaction, or contributory negligence? Which of these are the least likely, or is the least likely, to be asserted as a defense in a contract case? If you want to participate in today's quiz, send your responses to quiz@courtroom5.com.
I tell you, those are some tough questions you got there. Tough questions you got there. I don't even know what some of those defenses are, but Google is a friend. Courtroom Five is a friend, so we can certainly do our research there. Fantastic. Well, hopefully we'll have a winner on that tomorrow as well. At this time, I'm pleased to welcome to the show Mary Oram. Is a property manager handling issues between property owners, and tenants all the time. Mary, welcome to Who Wrote That Up For You. Thanks for joining us. Mary, I think we've got some audio issues there. Can't
Now,
quite hear you there.
is your mic on?
There we go.
There
Does
you
it
go.
work now? Okay, well, thank
Wonderful.
you for having me on.
Thank you so much for joining us, Mary. Tell us about your experience as a property manager. How did you find yourself in that field, and what made you interested in it?
Well, I married a real estate broker. and, and then I started having children. I had been a court consultant in my previous occupation, and it included a lot of travel. And so when I started having babies, I decided I was not leaving my children at home while I went off for a week somewhere. So my husband said, well, come work at the real estate brokerage. So that's how I made the shift.
Fantastic. I
5
know
years
that,
ago.
I know that you're also a notary public.
Yes.
Was that a part of becoming a property manager, or just something you've done in the past?
Well, in a real estate office, you always need to have someone who is a notary, because there are times when people can't go to a title company to sign things. And so my husband said, well, you're going to be our notary. So
Ah,
the notary for me.
Absolutely. So then tell us about the work of a property manager. What do you do in that role?
Well, we're the interface between the owners of the property and the tenants and everybody who has to do work on the property and all the agencies that we have to deal with. And so we spend our time Monday through Friday collecting rents, paying bills, keeping the records straight, contacting government agencies, arranging for repairs and maintenance, just everything that has to do with a property. You know, anyone who owns a home knows all the things you have to do to keep your home running. And that's what we do as agents for owners.
Absolutely. You know, we talk a lot here on the show and in our business about the problems that individuals can run into in
Mhm.
running afoul of the law or not being able to use procedures properly. But I know they're even more intricate when you're trying to run a business,
Yes.
particularly in real estate, which is its own
Mhm.
practice area, its own branch of the law. So, what are
Yeah.
some of the legal rules and regulations that you all have to be concerned about?
Well, tenants have rights. They have right to privacy. They have right to quiet enjoyment. And so the owner can't just barge in, and we can't just barge in. We have to give people notice when someone is coming to make a repair or do an inspection. We have a lot of, I'm in Berkeley, California, and Berkeley, California has an awful lot of local ordinances that we have to follow. We have rent control. We have just cause for eviction ordinance, which means that if an owner wants to move back into their house after they've been gone, you know, on a job assignment someplace else for a few years, they can't just tell the tenant to move. So we have to deal with all those things. And little things come up all the time. Just yesterday, there's a building that we manage. The owner died. He left the building to his caretaker. And she's using that now. She's of retirement age. She's using that as income. Well, there was a tenant in that building that had some financial problems a few years ago before COVID, and she stopped paying the rent. He was very generous and said she could pay, you know, after she got over this little hump and make payments on the debt. So she has been doing that. And then he died and she stopped those extra payments. And so I called a lawyer to say, does the debt go with the land? In other words, did the person who inherited the property inherit the 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 money that she's owed at the same time? And so I got the answer from the lawyer, and I'm going to write to the tenant today saying, do you remember you still owe such and such an amount of money? And it makes sense to me, but I felt like I needed to check with the lawyer before this, because I don't want someone to say I'm practicing law without a license. Or even if I'm, you know, even if I think I'm right, I want to make sure I have the right answer.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to put it in the file. And if anyone ever questions me on this, I will have a letter to say, I checked with the lawyer and here's what the lawyer said.
Excellent, excellent. It is so important to be able to get that legal advice
Yes.
And to stay out
Yes.
of trouble on unauthorized practice of law. What are the? Let me ask: how frequently do property managers do what you did and contact a lawyer or have a lawyer on retainer to just ring up
Yeah,
that?
I have a lawyer on retainer. I don't know because I don't talk to other property managers about things like this, but I would say issues come up, every month or so. And usually they're just small things, and you know, I'll send an email and I'll get an email back, and so I'm not going to get charged some hourly rate, but that's why I every year send a payment and say, you know, this is for my advice for the next year, you know, keep me out of trouble.
Exactly, exactly. It's very wise to do that. What kind of trouble could you get into, do you think, if you didn't
Well,
have that lawyer on
I have
retainer?
a real estate license, and my real estate, you know, the Department of Real Estate governs licensed people, and it's a civil, not criminal. So if I would give someone legal advice, even if they, I think even if they knew I wasn't a lawyer and it was incorrect and they relied on it, they could come after me for civil penalties. And the Department of Real Estate could sanction me, and they could do everything up to including, you know, removing my license, which means I don't have a way of making a living. And they can impose civil penalties, monetary damages. So I don't want to get involved in any of that.
Makes
So
a
I'm
lot of sense. Yeah,
yeah,
makes a lot of sense to have a lawyer on retainer
yeah.
for sure. That's fantastic. Yeah. Anything else you'd like to share with us,
I was
Mary?
gonna say, people, I'm a notary public also, and people bring in their document and they say, what should I do here? What should I do there? And first thing I say is, I am not a lawyer. You know, if the line says signature and they say, do I sign here? I can say, yes, you sign there because it says signature. But when they say, what does this mean? I'll say, call your lawyer. Call the person who made up the document for you.
Yep. Yep.
I don't want to get into trouble with that either.
Exactly, exactly. It's so interesting to have to take responsibility for understanding or deciding what's legal advice,
Yeah.
right, as opposed to legal information. There, I know
Yeah.
that's a subject we struggle with at Courtroom Five as well
Mhm.
all the time.
Yeah.
Fantastic, Mary. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and all the intricacies of property management from a
Oh,
legal.
you're welcome.
Really appreciate you joining us.
Mhm.
Best of luck. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Wow, as I said after speaking with Kitt, you would think our government would make the routine practices like this much simpler, right? You shouldn't necessarily have to retain a lawyer or have a lawyer on standby to be able to answer basic questions like that, in just a routine course of business. That is so difficult. There's some change that is needed, in my opinion. Deborah, you're on mute there.
Exactly. That situation with Mary can go a lot of places with the tenant staying because they can claim ownership. you know,
Oh,
I mean, if they want to be bad, there's a whole lot that could go with that. So it's really good that she has some what I call backup
yeah.
for that. That's really good. So
At the same time, so much of these rules and regulations end up adding to the cost of doing business, for
mhm.
companies and for individuals as well. When you think of all of the expenses Kit had to expend just trying to get her name changed, and so yeah, there's some change that needs to happen here for sure. Fantastic. Well, that's all we have for you today. Thanks as always for joining us on Who Wrote That Up for You, and we will see you tomorrow.
Are you feeling beleaguered, angry, or afraid, as if things are spinning out of control and you're powerless to stop them? It's easy to just let things slide and hope they don't get worse. But they often do get worse. The thing is, you're not powerless. Our courts belong to us, and their purpose is to give power to the powerless. Don't let your grievances pile up without redressing them. You can handle this in court. Or, if someone takes you to court, you can take them to school.